Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our conversation about UCSB economics as seniors reflecting on our 4 years, my 4 years and your 2 years of experience here. And the question we have for this video is kind of like a two-part question. So how hard is it exactly? And then also the structure of the classes in terms of what topics and whatnot.
Yeah. And like what classes we found most interesting, I think.
Okay. Yeah. And this is the core classes or everything?
I felt like we've talked about the core classes, so I think this could be like maybe more like combination of both core and electives.
Okay. So holistic. Cool. So how hard did you have to study? What's your studying habits? And I mean, this is also dependent on your scheduling, right?
Exactly.
Because you get to pick your own schedule here at college.
Yeah. So I front loaded everything. So I'm here for 6 total quarters. That's 2 years. I front loaded almost everything on my first 4 quarters. Not not super smart with respect to like, I guess like having time to work out and stuff, because I was just always studying, because I always had multiple econ classes in the same quarter. The class that I by far studied the single most for was 10A. And then each class was affected by what I was taking. So when I was taking 100B, I spent a good amount studying that, but I was also taking my writing course at that time, which is like I guess like a core for like your graduation.
Mm-hmm.
And that writing course like took a lot of my time and effort so I could like write better. But then when I took spring, I took 101, which is macro. And then I took 2 history of econ courses. So that's 3 econ courses total, which is a pretty heavy load. So I needed to kind of divide up my time in a very structured manner. So that's kind of like how it was for last year. This year was just a little different, but maybe if you wanted to chime in on any comments. Or
Yeah, sure. I mean, what we were talking about before this recording is that I haven't taken more than 1 econ class per quarter until last quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like 3.5 years of just having 1 econ class a quarter. And that was like really comfortable for me.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of if that's possible for you to do, if you want to graduate in 3 years, forget it. No way. 4 years, it is possible. I did the first summer class here. So that combined with a bunch of like college courses and credits from AP tests and like community college in high school carried over to make me like really ahead of the curve in terms of like a bunch of prereqs out of the way and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that was really nice because the only thing I had to stress about is essentially the econ class.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In terms of like now I have 2 per quarter and that's harder. Like I feel like my effort is hard because like you're just dividing your motivation to study also.
Yeah, exactly. And like when I said like in spring of my first year here, I did macro with 2 history of econ courses. Those 2 history of econ courses are pretty similar. It's the same professor. So it's like just a continuation. So to me, it wasn't like when I study for something, I like kind of just shut my brain off for the thing that is different. You know what I mean? Like if I'm studying 101, I'm only thinking about 101. If I'm studying for 107B, which is an elective, it's okay to think about 112A with Lanny.
Okay.
So because it's symbiotic, you know, like kind of like the growth of knowledge and whatnot. But in fall, I say fall was my most difficult quarter here. I took econometrics, which is, I think, the second toughest econ course offered here next to 10A, with international trade and international finance. And both of those are work heavy courses. Like they're interesting. I think that maybe there was like more room, but it's also like the quarter system. So you can't learn as much as you'd like, but those classes were like project heavy, homework heavy. And it was just, I had to divide up my time, like maybe about like, I don't know, like 40, 20, 20, 20.
Okay.
Between like the other course I took was music 15. That class also not as easy as Rate My Professor says. It's just a lot of busy work, and I should have passed, but I didn't, and I'm an overachiever, so I had to get an A, because if I don't get an A in music 15, people are gonna give me crap for it. So
yeah,
I ended up like just was.
Okay, just like a quick insert here. 140A and 10A, when you said 140A is like one of the hardest classes here, I think you're talking about the required classes, right? Not the elective classes. Because some elective classes are like hard.
Exactly true.
So I took this class called Game Theory. Really, really cool class. But man, that class is like hard. Like the professor, he's such a nice guy, but sometimes he's a little quiet in class. I mean, that'll probably change. He might retire by the time you guys come here. He's a great guy, but man, like the tests are just hard. Like I never took more than like an hour and a half or whatever for a test, because we get 3 hours for each final we take here. And I took 3 hours for that final. It was like 12 pages. It was so stressful. Yeah. But you learn a lot. That was a really cool class in terms of like thinking critically, something that employers would want to see. Game theory is definitely up there. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And like there's so many other courses that you can take that aren't necessarily, it's funny, on paper, not a lot of work, but I take it more personal to like actually invest myself in. I'm taking a negotiations class, which is like one of the most popular econ classes here. Might be because of the grading scale, but I think it's because the teacher just like really exposes us to things that are going to occur in real life. And it's funny because before the class, everybody's like, oh, it's a breeze, I won't care, like whatever. But then like now looking back on week 9, I asked the other kids like, oh, how are you guys feeling? They're like, oh man, like I wish I've done, I wish like, it's not, I wish I did better in my old cases. It's because like you're continuously learning almost every class, like how to structure proper negotiation, how to talk to other people. And it's like you take it kind of to heart because you care.
Yeah.
So, and it's like something that's going to teach you something in real life.
Okay.
Crap, I'm not going to remember the Roma model like or the Solo model, but econ teaches you how to critically think. I think that's one good aspect of it.
Yeah, definitely. I remember telling one of my intern employers in high tech, it's like, yeah, econ's really good at teaching you how to learn. And in today's economy, I know this sounds kind of cliche, but in today's world and all that, you really got to learn like how to learn. That's so important. Yeah. And like, yeah, like while the concepts might be not exactly the most applicable because humans aren't exactly the most rational beings, it's nice to know. It's really nice to know. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to talk about the economic thought with our history professor, Lanny Evenstein?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to learn everything about him, just check out, the podcast that Ashton did with him that I also sat in and listened to. And I really like that class because it's different from all the other ones. The other ones are very math heavy, not very like it's very theory based, like, but in growth of economic thought, it's theory doesn't always work. So what are kind of like the things that come around it? Like, why does this occur? Like, why does that happen? Yeah. I feel like it's I don't think this is correct, but a lot of the stuff may be reactionary to a lot of things. Like why things come about, like why did, socialism come about? Why did capitalism come about? Mercantilism was replaced by the gold standard. Why? Okay, yeah. And it's just really, I think that class really shows you kind of like I guess the path that humans have taken with respect to knowledge and growth towards kind of like social and economic thought,
There's a good amount of philosophy in there too. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot.
And we did take an American economic course, and that was like pretty much American history to a big degree. I liked it. It was enjoyable. But in that class, you will have to write a paper. So if that's something you're a little afraid of, maybe you don't take that class. But there's like 3-4 iterations of it.
Yeah. And then the paper, I think, I don't know. I've always had a good time writing
a paper. I love it, yeah.
Because it's like, I've never had an opportunity to write a paper with data within it. And I slowly got into it more and more. Actually, it was international finance where I also had to do a paper on basically the
GDP or something?
It was like I guess the finance of a country with respect to like how their like current account is, like all that stuff, like balance of payments, and analyzing like their goals for inflation and whatnot. Like, and that was the first actual, I guess, paper where I fused like graphs and description of the graphs. And I thought that was really cool.
It's cool. Yeah.
And then with Lanny, I was able to kind of do the same thing, especially with my Great Depression paper with like data and create some graphs potentially for him.
Yeah. It's a big paper. I've never written something 2,500 words.
Yeah. I had to write a 5,001 because I took 2 of his courses in one. That was rough, but it was great learning experience,
Any other classes you want to talk about?
I mean, I personally liked 140A, even though it was a tough class. I think it teaches you a lot of interesting things. Like if you have data, you're able to kind of see the effects of specific variables within that data through like a regression line and whatnot. I wish that I had someone that I can continue to learn about it more passionately. Okay. And unfortunately, I was unable to take 140 B because I took 134A.
This is econometrics, by the way. Yeah. If you don't, so it's like statistics with economic applications. Yeah.
So they'll be like pretty much like, what is the difference of like if it rains or not? Like how many ice creams will this person sell?
Fun question.
And and it's like super interesting because like you have the data and people are like, oh, that data doesn't describe everything. Let me run omitted variable bias on it. And then if the data changes, the line regression changes in a manner that you know that's true, then you know that you suffered from omitted variable bias. So you need to readjust your data. I don't know. I just think that's really cool.
Yeah. So I did the second iteration of that class 140B, and it was hard, but it was cool. Still pretty math heavy, but we got to do a lot of coding. We did more coding than we did in 140A. So it's like you have a computer lab, you go there and they're like, hey, run these problems for homework. And you sit down in a lab with a bunch of people and you kind of turn it out. You beg the TA for mercy and help. But in 140B, I think they changed the model. But for me, we had to look at a research paper. So you go ahead and you go on the American Economic Journal or Association or whatnot, and you find something that interests you and you see how they ran their data and you copy it. So that's really cool in terms of learning how the process actually works. And I know a lot of people in the class were interested in doing maybe pursuing it more academically. So that was cool. Also, it was funny because our TA, she had to leave for a bit because she was searching for jobs, and she got hired, I think, working for some government job a postdoctorate at MIT.
Oh,
so that was cool. Yeah, I got paid
that's
like
right.
150. Sarah Bonnet. So that's cool. So that is a field that is cool if you want to, go into big data with economics. Definitely a big thing. It's growing.
Super applicable. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that all the classes we got?
I mean, I'm trying to think.
Oh, okay, I got one. Experimental economics. It talked a lot about how to run actual economics tests. So there's a lot of morals involved in terms of you actually have to give a payout and not lie to your subjects, not patients.
Yeah.
And then how I don't know, they talked about certain experiments they ran on people, and that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I was in experimental for a week trying to get into, because it was Charnes who was teaching it, but then he's also the negotiations professor. So I ended up just taking negotiations. So I've always heard interesting things, even in that 1 week that I was there, a week and a half. It was pretty cool. You learn about the basics about experimenting and then how to do it, and then different experiments and how they're carried out is just insane.
Definitely.
The methods and all that.
Yeah, an interesting thing about the classes here is that your professors will talk about economic theory as theory. They never really present it as fact, as a law. So they'll say, oh, this is how the world works if these hold to be true. So kind of take it with a grain of salt, but this will be on the final sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there's a professor that we both had together actually for one class, but we both took a lot of his classes at different times. And it's about economic thought and kind of looking at the more tangible things, economics, like technology, social structures, and also political implications and all that. And it really gets you to maybe start doubting some of these things, which is cool because, it's healthy to be a skeptic. I think you were saying before, you're proud to be a skeptic.
I mean, I'm I've converted somewhat into becoming a skeptic. And, it's good to be skeptical because that means that you aren't just following something blindly by faith.
Yeah.
And just kind of segueing into this, because I took Lanny, I was able to kind of really see that come to fruition when I was taking international finance, and we were talking about interest rate parity and purchasing power parity. Interest rate parity, pretty much it's saying the difference of two countries' interest rates is also equal to this formula in which it's the depreciation. It's essentially the depreciation of one currency versus the other, percent change, whatever. And when I was doing my project, you could see how that wasn't the case. In real life, it's much different. The curve that they would have would just be almost like a straight line. But the curve that you actually get from data from the actual interest rates given by the Fed or I forget the other data place, but
BEA, I think. Bureau of Economic Analysis.
For sure, one's about the Fed, and then the other one was, I don't know. Oh well.
Yeah.
So then the other, with the data, it's just a sporadic, it's like a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And it's why did that occur? And you see basically when the curve goes up or down, it's the currency's depreciation or appreciation with respect to the US dollar. And so you see the economist doesn't go oh, that's wrong because theory says it should be this. The economist goes why did this happen? Oh, okay, I see a huge appreciation of a foreign currency versus a US currency in the 2007, the stock crash, or I see the appreciation of the dollar because the dollar actually became a reserve currency for some of these countries. So the dollar appreciated in value in some countries and then other countries it didn't. So it's like asking why. And I think that Lanny does that a very good job of just always kind of expanding on things.
Yeah. And talking about not necessarily blindly following the math, because the math follows models that might not be true.
Mm-hmm.
So just when you take the other classes, you got to think critically, like, is this really true? Like, yeah, this holds true for now, but in the real world, maybe not so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you talked about the economic crash, because I wanted to talk about that in terms of like the Great Depression and the Great Recession in 2009 or 2008, 2009. That's something you'll learn quite a bit of. Some professors like glance over it. Some go a little more in depth or like encourage you to go in more depth. So that's something really cool. I know it's like something that I feel like it's something everyone should know about, because it affects all of us personally in terms of 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
But also like the causes and like how it affects families and like, you know, how to prevent another one from coming about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like super interesting because I did a huge research paper on the Great Depression, which is not as it was the biggest economic downturn that the U.S. has seen for multiple years. And like the reasonings behind it, like how the government and the Fed attempted to kind of bounce back from it, the criticism of the New Deal, the criticisms of the bounce back, the you know, everything that FDR did.
Yeah.
And also maybe the kind of what you really learn is the power of interest rates, inflation, unemployment, and how they're all kind of symbiotic, you know, like Okune's law, Phillips curve, and all that has to deal with inflation and whatnot. So, and it's super applicable is because today we're kind of, the biggest topic that it was in late last quarter was the Fed wanted to increase the interest rates, and our president was saying how that might be his number one enemy right now because the economy is doing so well. And some people say, you know what, no, you do need to curb this growth because inflation will get out of hand.
Yeah.
But then other people are like, you know, 2% growth is not enough. We need more growth. How steady can we make that growth? How steady can we have this trajectory into the future, you know? And I think that's what like Lanny has enabled us to see is like just question, think, like form a solution, you know?
Yeah, I always did appreciate how professors, sometimes they take like clips from the Wall Street Journal or like New York Times or The Economist and integrate it in their slides and talking about politics as a supplement to, not like as a part of the lecture, but like a supplement and be like, hey guys, check this out. This might be interesting. So I thought that was really cool. It's very applicable because I mean, that's like current events, that's politics. They try not to, they don't really talk about like politics in terms of like choosing a side. They just kind of tell you objectively what's going on.
Yeah.
Lanny Ebenstein, sometimes he'll get like so into it. He'll just postpone lecture for like half the class and it's great. It's just like a free form discussion, like students like asking him questions, challenging him, and he loves that.
Yeah. And I think those are like I think that those are like the most fun classes I've ever had because I just hear so many different people speak about it. And I feel like a lot of the time, like at my previous institution, some of the teachers always put their input, but here it's always it's more objective. Like this is what it is. I'm not telling you what is the solution or how to write you know, they just tell you how it is and kind of get your feedback off of it. So as opposed to like everything else where it's always, it's like their values were being like pushed down my throat back in the day, like in other institutions. I feel like the teachers that I've had here did a pretty good job of just like giving us what we need. Yeah. And then some, you know, formulate their opinion, which is great. I mean, you can't be talking about things if you're not passionate about them. And that's what I like about some professors here is that they're very passionate about it. So
especially like going to office hours and seeing them one-on-one as opposed to like them standing in front of 600 people lecturing. It's definitely like nice to see that they're like a lot more relaxed, obviously, but a lot more personable. It's nice.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Well, this is running pretty long. Do we have anything else? Maybe just general tips?
Yeah, general
because this will be like the last video
general
of the series.
Tips / like I guess my overall experience. You know, just like super close out. So
yeah.
You wanna?
Oh man. Okay, it's on me.
Yeah, it's on you.
Oh yikes. Okay. General tips. So the first thing I did when I came to UCSB is that I found a good place to study because I could not study in my room. So I end up studying on the 8th floor. I said this in the podcast actually. The 8th floor of the library, which is really nice, very quiet, but kind of lonely. So if I were to do it again, maybe not so much of that. And talk to your fellow students, talk to people in lecture. That's something I definitely didn't do enough, but man, it's so useful. Like maybe you heard something wrong. Maybe you need some type of supplemental thing and they have it. Yeah. That's really, really nice.
Or even they know something that you don't. So.
Yeah, exactly. And then another tip, man, I know like a lot of people going into econ are like great students in high school. And it doesn't mean like you can't be a great student in college, but don't expect to be the cream of the crop that you were in high school. Getting B's, man, I was so happy to get some B's. It's hilarious. Like I got a B in game 3. I'm like, yes. Yeah. So it's like, you know, like it's hard, but you know, you put your effort into it and it pays off. So yeah. Go ahead.
I guess like my closing remarks is like, just, you are going to get whatever you're going to get out of this, whatever you put into it. Like if you're just trying to look for an easy, whatever, it's not going to work out. Like in hindsight, the major is really tough, but it's really like beneficial for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, no, it's just like in hindsight, everything, like you appreciate everything more than what it is. Like I'm closing out my career with like negotiations as my only econ course, so I can actually appreciate all like the crap that I went through in the other classes. So I guess like you're going to struggle, no doubt, and you might hate it. You might say like screw this and whatever, but I wouldn't throw it all away just because of like some difficult times.
It is pretty worth it, yeah. But that being said, like don't be afraid to branch out into other courses. I know like in my head it's like, man, if I don't make the econ major, that's ultimate failure. I can never like go back. Yeah. But I think it's a bit narrow-minded in terms of like your whole college experience.
Yeah, there's always TMP and whatnot. So
yeah, exactly. Maybe I'll have a video on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. With this guy. This guy is a TMP legend.
Yeah. Until next time.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. And again, description below, we'll have his Instagram and all that stuff, but also the podcast with him. I think that's like the 4th time I've talked about this. Yeah. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Any questions or whatsoever, please in the description below, or you can message either of our Instagrams or whatnot. So yeah. Thank you guys so much. Hope you got something out of this. Entertainment, knowledge. Yeah.
Everything.
Knowledge is power. Cool.
Knowledge is power. Thanks.
Thank you guys.
And cut.